Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched the stars through the main screen. The year was 2387, and humans had built homes on dozens of worlds across space. Jake had been exploring new star systems for 10 years now, and he loved his job. Today, they were checking out the Kepler 442 system, looking for planets that might have useful minerals or places where humans could build new colonies. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Lieutenant Amy Cole sat at the sensor station, checking for anything unusual while Ensign Roy Parker monitored communications. Jake liked his small crew, and they had worked together for 3 years without any major problems. Space exploration was mostly peaceful work, and Jake preferred it that way. Suddenly, Amy looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Captain, I'm reading something strange on the sensors. There are ships approaching our position, but they don't match any human designs in our database." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Humans had been traveling through space for over 200 years, and they had never found any sign of alien life. The discovery of other intelligent beings would be the biggest news in human history. "Put it on the main screen, Amy." The stars disappeared and were replaced by an image that made everyone on the bridge hold their breath. 3 ships hung in space ahead of them, and they were unlike anything humans had ever built. The vessels looked like they were made of crystal, and light seemed to flow through their hulls in strange patterns. They were beautiful, but also somehow frightening. "Try to make contact, Roy," Jake ordered. His voice was steady, but inside he felt nervous and excited at the same time. "Send them a standard greeting message on all frequencies." Roy worked at his station for several minutes before shaking his head. "No response, Captain. They're not answering any of our signals." Jake was about, to order another attempt when the alien ship suddenly moved. They came toward the Defiance much faster than any human ship could travel. Jake watched them approach and noticed they were much larger than his exploration vessel. The biggest one was at least 5 times the size of the Defiance. Without warning, the main screen lit up with an incoming message. The image showed a being that was clearly not human. It had pale blue skin and large black eyes with no visible pupils. When it spoke, its voice was cold and emotionless. "Primitive species, you will submit to the Zephyrian Empire or face destruction. Your worlds will serve our needs and your people will work for our glory. Resistance is meaningless. You have one of your time units to surrender." Jake stared at the screen in shock. This was not how first contact was supposed to happen. All the scientists and diplomats had imagined peaceful meetings and exchanges of knowledge. Instead, these aliens were demanding that humans become their slaves. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human exploration vessel Defiance," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "We come in peace and wish to establish friendly relations between our species. Perhaps we can discuss this and find a solution that benefits everyone." The alien on the screen showed no emotion. "There is nothing to discuss. Submit or die." Before Jake could respond, the alien ships opened fire on something in the distance. Jake ordered Amy to check what they were attacking, and her face went white. "Captain, they just destroyed the Helios 7 mining station. 8,000 people were working there." Jake felt sick to his stomach. 8,000 human beings had just been murdered without warning or reason. The mining station had been a peaceful operation with families and children living in the habitat modules. Now they were all dead simply because these aliens wanted to show their power. "All ships prepare to jump to hyperspace immediately," Jake ordered. The Defiance was not a military vessel and carried only basic defensive weapons. They could not fight these aliens and hope to survive. The alien commander appeared on screen again. "Your response demonstrates wisdom. Return to your home world and inform your leaders that the Zephyrian Empire will arrive soon to accept your surrender. Any attempt to resist will result in the complete destruction of your species." Jake said nothing as the Defiance jumped into hyperspace and began the long journey back to Earth. His mind kept returning to the image of Helios 7 exploding in a ball of fire. Thousands of innocent people had died in seconds, and the aliens had shown no more emotion than if they were swatting insects. During the 3-day journey home, Jake sent detailed reports to Earth Defense Command and the United Earth government. He included all the sensor data about the alien ships and recordings of their communications. By the time the Defiance reached Earth orbit, the entire human government was in emergency session. Admiral Lisa Carter met Jake at the space station, and her face showed the same mixture of shock and anger that Jake felt. "How many ships did you count, Captain?" "3 in our immediate area, Admiral, but our long-range sensors detected at least 200 more moving toward human space. They're bigger and more advanced than anything we have." Lisa nodded grimly. "The President has called for a full military alert. Every ship and every soldier is being mobilized. These aliens think they can just walk in and take our worlds, but they're about to learn something about humans they clearly don't understand." Jake looked out at Earth through the station's windows and saw military ships moving in all directions. The blue and green planet below looked so peaceful, but he knew that peace was about to end. The aliens had made a terrible mistake when they murdered the people at Helios 7. They thought they were showing strength, but instead, they had awakened something in humanity that would change the galaxy forever. The news spread across human space faster than any ship could travel. Every communication network carried the same terrible message about the destruction of Helios 7 and the alien demand for surrender. On Earth, people gathered around screens, in their homes and public places, watching the recordings from the Defiance over and over again. The cold voice of the alien commander saying, "Submit or die," played on every news channel. President Maria Santos stood in the White House Situation Room surrounded by military leaders and government officials. The room was filled with anger and determination. General Frank Walsh, the commander of all human military forces, slammed his fist on the table. 8,000 innocent people murdered without warning. These aliens think they can just walk in and take our worlds like we're some primitive species. Maria looked around the room at the faces of her advisors. She had been president for 6 years and had dealt with many crises, but nothing like this. "What are our military capabilities, Frank? Can we fight these aliens?" Frank pulled up holographic displays showing human military strength. "We have about 5,000 combat ships scattered across our colonies, but most of them are patrol vessels and system defense craft. Our biggest warships are the 12 dreadnoughts of the home fleet, but according to Captain Morrison's sensor data, the alien ships are much larger and more advanced." Admiral Lisa Carter stepped forward. "Madam President, our ships may be smaller, but our people are angry, and angry humans fight harder than anyone expects. I recommend we begin immediate mobilization of all military and civilian resources." On Mars, factory worker Tony Rivera watched the news reports with his 8-year-old daughter, Emma, sitting beside him. The dome cities of Mars had been peaceful for decades, with families raising children and building new lives. Now alien ships were coming to destroy everything they had built. Tony held Emma close as she asked why the aliens wanted to hurt people. Tony worked in one of the giant manufacturing plants that built mining equipment and cargo ships. As he watched the president declare a state of emergency and call for full military mobilization, he knew his life was about to change. The factory managers were already announcing that all production would be converted to military needs within 48 hours. Dr. Amy Klein was evacuating her research station on Europa when the alien fleet appeared in the Jupiter system. She was a marine biologist studying life in the oceans beneath the ice and had never thought about war or fighting. Now she watched through the station windows as massive alien ships descended toward the moon's surface. The evacuation ships could only carry half the research staff, and Amy volunteered to stay behind with the emergency team. The aliens attacked without any attempt at communication. Their weapons turned the research stations into vapor and cracked the ice surface in dozens of places. Amy and 12 other scientists hid in an emergency shelter deep beneath the surface as the bombardment continued for 6 hours. When it finally stopped, they emerged to find their peaceful research colony completely destroyed. Back on Earth, the response was unlike anything in human history. Every shipyard and factory began working around the clock to build weapons and ships. Civilian cargo vessels were brought in for military conversion, and their peaceful equipment was replaced with missile launchers and defensive systems. Construction. Worker Pete Davis led a team of volunteers who worked 18 hours a day building hidden weapon storage facilities on Luna. The aliens had made a critical error in their understanding of human nature. In their 1,000 years of conquest, they had always faced species that either surrendered immediately or fought briefly before accepting defeat. They had never encountered a species that became more dangerous when threatened and more determined when attacked. Ellen Brooks was a teacher at a primary school in New Geneva Colony when the evacuation order came. She organized the civilian evacuation networks, but also began collecting information about alien ship movements and transmitting it to military headquarters. Within weeks, teachers and doctors and engineers across human space had formed intelligence networks that the aliens never detected. The Zephyrian Admiral Vex Thanor reviewed the reports from his advanced scouts with growing confusion. His species had conquered over 1,000 worlds, and the pattern was always the same. The initial attack would demonstrate superior power, and the target species would quickly negotiate surrender terms. Some species fought for a few weeks or months, but they always accepted reality when faced with the Empire's overwhelming strength. Humans were behaving differently. Instead of sending diplomats to discuss surrender terms, they were mobilizing every resource for war. Civilian populations were volunteering for military service in numbers that seemed impossible. Their primitive factories were somehow converting to weapons production faster than Zephyrian intelligence had thought possible. Commander Steve Parker was a cargo pilot who had spent 15 years hauling supplies between the outer colonies. He had never served in the military and had no combat training, but when the call came for volunteer pilots, he was among the first to sign up. The military was forming new squadrons using converted civilian ships and pilots who were willing to learn combat flying in just a few weeks. Steve learned that his new squadron would be called the Ghost Squadron, and their mission would be to attack alien capital ships using small, fast ships loaded with explosives. It was essentially a suicide mission, but hundreds of pilots volunteered anyway. The aliens had murdered children at Helios 7, and every human pilot wanted revenge. Dr. Carol Martinez was the leading expert on alien technology at the Science Institute on Earth. She had studied the sensor recordings from the Defiance for weeks, trying to understand how alien ships worked. The technology was more advanced than anything humans had developed, but Carol noticed something important. The aliens seemed to use the same basic principles of physics that humans understood. Carol began working with teams of engineers to design new weapons and defensive systems based on what they had learned about alien technology. She knew they couldn't match alien capabilities immediately, but humans were good at taking existing technology and improving it quickly. If they could capture even one alien ship intact, the possibilities would be enormous. 6 months after first contact, the character of human space had completely changed. Peaceful colonies had become military bases, and cargo ships had become warships. The aliens were advancing slowly through human territory, expecting to find scattered resistance that would collapse quickly. Instead, they found humans who fought for every planet and every moon with desperate fury. The Battle of Titan marked the first major engagement between human and alien forces. Captain Roy Fisher commanded a small fleet of converted freighters against a Zephyrian patrol group. His ships were outgunned and outclassed, but they refused to retreat. Instead, they rammed their vessels into alien ships while broadcasting a simple message across all frequencies. You want a war? You've got one. 6 months after the first alien attack, human space had become something the Zephyrian Empire had never encountered before. What should have been a quick conquest was turning into a grinding war against an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with every defeat. Admiral Vex Thanor studied the latest battle reports with increasing concern as his forces advanced through human territory. The humans were fighting in ways that defied all military logic. When the aliens destroyed a colony, the survivors didn't surrender or flee. Instead, they formed guerrilla groups that attacked alien supply lines and communication networks. When human ships were outgunned, they didn't retreat. They rammed their vessels into alien craft while screaming messages of defiance across all radio frequencies. Commander Steve Parker led the Ghost Squadron in its first major operation against an alien battle group near Saturn. His squadron consisted of 20 converted cargo ships, each loaded with antimatter charges and crewed by volunteer pilots who knew they probably wouldn't survive. Steve had trained his pilots for only 3 weeks, but they flew with the fury of people who had lost everything they cared about. The alien ships detected the approaching human vessels and opened fire with their advanced weapons. Half of Steve's squadron was destroyed in the first few minutes, but the surviving ships pressed their attack. Steve watched his friends die around him, but he kept flying toward the largest alien ship. His cargo hauler shook under enemy fire, but he managed to ram it directly into the alien vessel's bridge section. The explosion was visible from Earth's outer colonies as both ships disappeared in a ball of nuclear fire. Steve Parker died in that explosion, but his sacrifice destroyed an alien heavy cruiser that would have taken weeks for conventional forces to defeat. More importantly, his attack proved that humans could hurt the aliens badly if they were willing to pay the price. Dr. Carol Martinez had been working around the clock since the war began trying to understand alien technology. Her laboratory on Earth was filled with fragments recovered from destroyed alien ships, and she had teams of engineers studying every piece. The breakthrough came when human forces managed to capture a damaged alien fighter craft that had crash-landed on Mars. Carol's team spent 2 months taking the fighter apart and examining every component. What they discovered changed everything. The aliens used energy weapons and defensive shields that were more advanced than human technology, but they weren't impossible to understand. Human scientists could reverse engineer the alien systems and even improve on them in some ways. The first human ships equipped with hybrid technology launched just 8 months after the war began. Captain Alex Turner commanded the prototype vessel UES Vengeance, which combined human engineering with captured alien weapons and shields. The ship looked strange, with its mix of human angular design and flowing alien curves, but it could fight alien vessels on equal terms. Turner tested his new ship against an alien patrol near Jupiter and discovered that human adaptability gave them advantages the aliens didn't expect. The Vengeance was faster and more maneuverable than pure alien designs because human engineers had improved the propulsion systems. Turner's crew could also repair battle damage much faster than alien crews because humans were used to working with limited resources. The turning point came at the Battle of Titan, where the largest human fleet ever assembled faced a major alien force. Captain Roy Fisher commanded 200 converted civilian ships against 50 alien warships. By all military calculations, the humans should have been destroyed within hours, but Roy had something the aliens couldn't understand. His crews were not professional soldiers following orders. They were ordinary people who had watched their homes burn and their families die. They fought with a combination of desperate courage and cold rage that the aliens had never encountered. When alien weapons destroyed human ships, the survivors didn't panic. They continued fighting until their vessels were nothing but wreckage drifting in space. Roy's flagship was a converted passenger liner that had once carried tourists between the colonies. Now it bristled with missile launchers and carried a crew of volunteers who had lost everything to the alien invasion. When alien heavy weapons crippled his ship's engines, Roy ordered his crew to ram the nearest alien vessel. The collision destroyed both ships, but it also broke the alien formation and allowed the rest of the human fleet to close with their enemies. What followed was not a space battle in any traditional sense. It was a brawl where human ships grappled with alien vessels and crews fought hand-to-hand in the corridors of damaged spacecraft. Intelligence Officer Holly Grant was monitoring alien communications from her station on Luna when she detected something that changed the entire war. The aliens were talking to each other about the human resistance, and for the first time, their messages showed fear instead of confidence. Zephyrian commanders were requesting reinforcements and reporting casualties that their high command found impossible to believe. Holly translated the alien messages and discovered that the Zephyrian Empire had never faced anything like human resistance. In their 1,000 years of conquest, they had always fought species that followed logical military strategies. When faced with overwhelming force, these species calculated their chances and surrendered to avoid further losses. Humans were doing the opposite. The more damage the aliens inflicted, the harder humans fought back. Human casualties that should have broken their resistance instead seemed to make them more determined. Alien intelligence officers couldn't understand why humans would sacrifice so many lives for planets and colonies that could never be defended successfully. The aliens began making tactical errors because they couldn't predict human behavior. They expected human fleets to retreat when faced with superior forces, but instead human commanders often attacked regardless of the odds. They expected human civilians to surrender when their colonies were threatened, but instead entire populations volunteered for suicide missions. Dr. Martinez launched the first human research ships equipped with fully hybrid technology 9 months after the war began. These vessels could travel as fast as alien ships, and their weapons could penetrate alien shields. More importantly, they carried teams of scientists who studied every alien tactic and developed countermeasures within days instead of months. The psychological impact on alien forces was devastating. Zephyrian crews had grown up believing their empire was invincible, and their technology was generations ahead of any primitive species they might encounter. Now they were losing battles to humans who had learned to fly in space only a few centuries ago. Commander Rita Bell led the first human deep strike missions into alien-controlled territory using ships that could outrun and outfight most Zephyrian vessels. Her crews didn't just attack military targets. They hit alien supply bases and communication networks and civilian infrastructure with the same ruthless efficiency the aliens had shown at Helios 7. Rita's pilots flew with cold professional skill, but also with personal hatred that made them incredibly dangerous. They had all lost friends or family to the alien invasion, and they wanted revenge for every human life that had been taken. The aliens discovered that humans could be just as ruthless as any species in the galaxy when they were pushed far enough. 1 year after the first alien attack, the war had changed completely. What began as an alien invasion of human space had become a human offensive deep into Zephyrian territory. The aliens who had expected to conquer humanity in months were now fighting desperately to defend their own worlds from human attack fleets that seemed to appear from nowhere. Captain Alex Turner commanded the UES Vengeance as it hunted alien ships through the outer regions of Zephyrian space. His vessel was the first of a new class of human warships that combined the best of both technologies. The ship could outrun most alien vessels, and its weapons could punch through their defensive shields with devastating effect. Turner's crew had been fighting for over a year, and they had become something the aliens had never seen before. They were not just soldiers following orders. They were hunters who tracked their prey across multiple star systems and showed no mercy when they found it. Every member of Turner's crew had lost someone at Helios 7 or in the attacks that followed, and they wanted revenge for every human life that had been taken. The Vengeance detected an alien supply convoy near the Rigel system, and Turner ordered his ship to intercept. The convoy consisted of 12 cargo vessels protected by 4 escort ships. In the early days of the war, such a force would have been impossible for a single human ship to attack. Now Turner's crew destroyed the entire convoy in less than 20 minutes. The alien escort ships were faster than old human designs, but the Vengeance was built with improved engines that gave it superior speed and maneuverability. Turner used hit-and-run tactics that the aliens couldn't counter. His ship would appear suddenly, fire its weapons, and disappear before the aliens could return fire effectively. Commander Rita Bell led the Fury squadrons in attacks that struck terror into alien forces throughout their empire. Her pilots flew small, fast ships that could slip past alien defenses and attack targets deep in enemy territory. They didn't just hit military installations. They targeted alien communication networks, supply depots, and civilian infrastructure with surgical precision. Rita's squadrons operated like wolves hunting in packs. They would coordinate their attacks across multiple star systems, simultaneously forcing the aliens to spread their defenses thin. When alien reinforcements arrived at one target, they would find the human ships already gone and attacking somewhere else hundreds of light-years away. The psychological impact on alien forces was enormous. Zephyrian commanders never knew where the next human attack would come from or what target would be hit. Their ships had to travel in large groups for protection, but even major battle fleets were not safe from human assault. The humans had learned to fight like guerrillas in space using superior mobility to offset the aliens' numerical advantage. Admiral Lisa Carter coordinated the human offensive from her headquarters on Earth. She had access to intelligence reports from across the galaxy, and she used that information to plan attacks that hit the aliens where they were weakest. The Zephyrian Empire had grown complacent during their 1,000 years of easy conquest, and their military doctrine couldn't adapt quickly to human tactics. Lisa studied the reports from human deep strike missions and noticed something important. The aliens were pulling ships back from their forward positions to defend their core worlds. The massive fleet that had invaded human space was being broken up and scattered across Zephyrian territory as they tried to protect everything at once. On Earth, President Santos addressed the United Earth government with a message that was broadcast across human space. Her words were heard by millions of people on dozens of worlds, and they captured the mood that had taken hold of humanity since the alien attack. They came to our worlds expecting to find sheep ready for slaughter. Instead, they found wolves protecting their pack. Now they learn what happens when wolves hunt together. We will not stop until every alien ship is destroyed and every human life is avenged. The aliens attempted to negotiate a ceasefire through captured human prisoners, but the response from Admiral Carter became legendary throughout the galaxy. When the alien negotiator offered to withdraw from human space in exchange for peace, Carter's reply was broadcast on all frequencies. "You should have thought about peace before you murdered our children." Dr. Carol Martinez had moved beyond simply copying alien technology and was now developing weapons that were uniquely human. Her research teams had created new types of missiles that could track alien ships through hyperspace and energy weapons that specifically targeted Zephyrian defensive systems. Most importantly, they had developed a new type of ship armor that could absorb alien energy weapons and redirect the power to human systems. The first human ships equipped with Dr. Martinez's new armor entered combat near the Vega system, and the results exceeded all expectations. The alien weapons that had terrorized human colonies for months now made human ships stronger instead of weaker. Turner's crew watched in amazement as enemy fire was absorbed by their hull and converted into power for their own weapons. Intelligence. Officer Holly Grant had broken the alien military communication codes and was reading their messages in real time. What she discovered showed how completely the war had changed. Zephyrian commanders were reporting to their high command that human forces were operating throughout their empire and no target was safe from attack. The aliens were also reporting, something that Holly found deeply satisfying. Human prisoners were proving impossible to break under interrogation because they showed no fear of death and refused to provide any useful information. Many human captives actually seemed to enjoy taunting their captors about the defeats their fleets were suffering. the Zephyrian Council began recalling ships from other sectors of their empire to deal with the human threat, but this only created more problems. Other species that had been conquered by the aliens saw the recalls as an opportunity to rebel. Within months, the Zephyrian Empire was fighting insurgencies on dozens of worlds as their former victims followed the human example. Commander. Jack Stone led a human battle group that penetrated deep into the heart of Zephyrian space and attacked industrial targets on their core worlds. His ships used stealth technology developed from captured alien systems, and they could operate for weeks in enemy territory without being detected. Stone's raids destroyed factories and shipyards that had been building alien vessels for centuries. The aliens discovered that humans fought with a level of hatred that they had never encountered before. Zephyrian crews who surrendered were treated correctly according to military law, but human interrogators made it clear that they considered every alien personally responsible for the massacre at Helios 7. The psychological pressure broke many. Alien prisoners who provided information about their military capabilities and strategic plans. Major Casey Williams led the first human ground forces to land on an alien world when her Marines captured a Zephyrian military base in the Arcturus system. The base had been considered impregnable, but Williams used tactics that the aliens couldn't counter. Her troops moved like ghosts through the alien facility and struck without warning. The captured alien personnel couldn't understand why humans fought so effectively despite having inferior technology and smaller numbers. Williams explained it to the alien base commander in simple terms. "You made us angry when you killed our people, and angry humans are the most dangerous thing in the galaxy." The war entered its final phase as human fleets pushed toward the center of Zephyrian space, where their ancient homeworld waited. What had begun as an alien invasion had become a human crusade of vengeance that swept through the galaxy like a storm of fire and steel. The Zephyrian Empire that had ruled for 1,000 years was crumbling under the assault of a species they had dismissed as primitive. Emperor Keth Valar stood in his crystal palace on Zephyr Prime and watched the reports flood in from across his dying empire. Human fleets were operating in every sector, and no world was safe from their attacks. His admirals spoke of tactical withdrawals and strategic repositioning, but the Emperor knew they were simply trying to avoid admitting the truth. The Zephyrian Empire was losing a war against a species that had learned to travel between stars only a few centuries ago. Major Casey Williams led the first human ground forces to breach the outer defenses of Zephyr Prime. Her Marines had fought their way across a dozen alien worlds, and they had become something that even veteran human soldiers found frightening. They moved through enemy positions like avenging angels, destroying everything in their path with cold professional efficiency. Casey's troops were no longer the civilian volunteers who had signed up after Helios 7. They were hardened combat veterans who had spent 2 years fighting an enemy that showed no mercy and expected none in return. Every Marine in Casey's unit had lost friends to alien weapons, and they fought with the focused hatred of people who had seen too much death. The Crystal. Cities of Zephyr Prime had stood for millennia as monuments to alien civilization and technological superiority. Now they burned under human bombardment as Captain Turner's fleet systematically destroyed every military target on the planet's surface. The aliens had built their cities to be beautiful and eternal, but they had never designed them to withstand, attacked by an enemy as ruthless as humanity had become. Dr. Nicole Adams had developed weapons that specifically targeted Zephyrian biology and physiology. Her research teams had studied captured alien prisoners for months, learning exactly how their bodies worked and what substances would be most effective against them. The weapons Dr. Adams created were not designed to kill quickly. They were designed to cause maximum fear and suffering among alien forces. Nicole's biological weapons were deployed for the first time during the siege of Zephyr Prime, and the results exceeded all expectations. Alien soldiers who had fought bravely against human Forces for 2 years broke and fled when they saw what these new weapons could do to their comrades. The psychological impact was devastating, as entire alien units surrendered rather than face death from human bioweapons. Sergeant Kyle Brooks had enlisted as a 17-year-old boy the day after the Helios 7 massacre. Now, he was 20 years old and commanded a squad of Marines who had fought on more alien worlds than most veteran soldiers. Kyle's men no longer fought to defend human territory. They fought to ensure that the aliens would never threaten anyone ever again. Kyle's squad specialized in urban combat, and they had perfected tactics for fighting in alien cities. They moved through the crystal spires of Zephyr Prime like hunters tracking dangerous prey. Every room was cleared methodically, and every alien position was eliminated with brutal efficiency. There were no prisoners taken, and no mercy shown to an enemy that had murdered human children. The combined human fleet that surrounded Zephyr Prime numbered over 3,000 ships, representing the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Admiral Carter commanded the fleet from her flagship UES Retribution, and she prepared to deliver humanity's final ultimatum to the alien empire that had started this war. The fleet included every type of human vessel, from massive battleships to small patrol craft. Many of the ships were crewed by civilians who had volunteered to fight when their worlds were attacked. Others carried the elite units that had been fighting in alien space for over a year. All of them shared the same burning desire to finish what the aliens had started at Helios 7. Commander Jack Stone broadcast the final ultimatum on all frequencies so that every alien on the planet could hear humanity's demands. His voice was calm and professional, but it carried an undertone of barely controlled rage that made the aliens understand exactly what would happen if they refused. This is Commander Jack Stone of the Human Defense Force addressing the Zephyrian government. You have exactly 1 hour to surrender unconditionally and open your planetary defenses. If you refuse, we will reduce your world to radioactive dust, just like you did to our mining station. Your empire ends today, one way or another. The hour passed in complete silence as the alien government debated their options. Emperor Keth Valar consulted with his military advisors and civilian ministers, but they all gave him the same advice. The human fleet had enough firepower to destroy their planet several times over, and there was no possibility of successful resistance. At exactly 60 minutes after the ultimatum was delivered, the Emperor's surrender message was broadcast from the Imperial Palace. His voice shook with defeat and humiliation as he spoke words that no Zephyrian ruler had ever been forced to say. The Zephyrian Empire surrenders unconditionally to human forces. We request mercy for our civilian population. Admiral Carter's response was broadcast throughout the galaxy and became one of the most famous messages in military history. Her words captured the mood of humanity after 2 years of total war against an enemy that had shown no mercy to human civilians. Mercy is what we showed you at first contact. You chose war instead. Now you face the consequences of that choice. The human Marines who stormed the Imperial Palace were led by Colonel Sam Mitchell, a career soldier who had watched the Helios 7 massacre on live television. Sam's troops moved through the alien palace like an unstoppable force, capturing alien officials and securing important facilities. The Crystal Throne Room, where alien emperors had ruled for 1,000 years, was occupied by human soldiers in less than 30 minutes. Emperor Keth Valar was taken prisoner by Sergeant Lisa Cooper, a young woman whose parents had died in the alien attack on Mars. Lisa had fought on 6 different worlds during the war, and she had earned the right to capture the alien leader who had ordered the destruction of human colonies. The Emperor, who had commanded fleets that conquered 1,000 worlds, was now a prisoner of the species he had tried to exterminate. The fall of Zephyr Prime marked the end of the Zephyrian Empire, but it was not the end of human military operations. Human fleets spread throughout former alien territory, establishing military governments on every world and ensuring that no remnant of the Empire could ever threaten anyone again. The galaxy learned that humanity could be generous allies, but also the most dangerous enemies any species could face. Dr. Martinez led teams of scientists who studied every aspect of Zephyrian technology and society to ensure that humanity would never again be caught unprepared by a hostile alien species. Her research revealed that the Zephyrian Empire had been just one of several aggressive civilizations in the galaxy, and that other threats might emerge in the future. The war that began with the massacre of 8,000 miners had reshaped the entire galaxy and established humanity as the dominant military power among the stars. The species that had come to space seeking knowledge and friendship had become the guardians of galactic peace through sheer force of arms and unbreakable determination. The Zephyrian Empire that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years was gone. In less than 2 years, a species they had dismissed as primitive had not only defeated their armies, but completely dismantled their civilization. Human military governors, now ruled former alien worlds, and the galaxy had learned a lesson that would never be forgotten. Humanity's response to unprovoked aggression was swift, total, and utterly without mercy. Colonel Sam Mitchell stood in the crystal throne room of the Imperial Palace on Zephyr Prime and watched as human engineers dismantled the alien government's communication systems. The beautiful crystalline architecture that had taken centuries to build was being methodically stripped of anything that could be used to coordinate resistance. Sam's orders were simple and direct. The Zephyrian Empire would never rise again. Emperor Kethvalar sat in a detention cell designed for human prisoners and tried to understand how his mighty empire had fallen so quickly. His species had conquered over 1,000 worlds, using superior technology and overwhelming military force. They had never encountered significant resistance from any species they attacked. The humans had changed that pattern in ways that still seemed impossible. The Emperor had access to all the military reports from the war, and he read them obsessively, trying to find some explanation for his empire's defeat. The humans had started with inferior technology and smaller numbers, but they had fought with a level of determination that Zephyrian military doctrine couldn't counter. More importantly, they had adapted and improved at a rate that seemed to violate everything the aliens understood about technological development. Admiral Lisa Carter established her headquarters in the former Alien Naval Command Center and began the massive task of reorganizing the conquered territory. Her staff included not just military officers, but civilian administrators who would govern the hundreds of worlds that had once belonged to the Zephyrian Empire. The job was enormous, but Carter had learned during the war that humans could accomplish anything if they were motivated strongly enough. The first priority was ensuring that no remnant of the alien military could threaten anyone ever again. Human forces systematically destroyed every Zephyrian military installation and confiscated all weapons technology. Alien soldiers were disarmed and sent to prison camps where they would remain until the human government decided what to do with them. President Santos arrived on Zephyr Prime 3 months after the surrender to personally oversee the transition to human rule. She walked through the crystal cities that had once housed the alien elite and saw the destruction that 2 years of war had brought to both sides. The aliens had started the conflict, but humanity had finished it in ways that changed the galaxy forever. Santos met with Emperor Kethvalar in his detention facility, and the conversation between them was recorded for historical purposes. The alien ruler still couldn't understand why humans had fought so hard for worlds and colonies that could never be defended against superior force. Santos explained it in terms that would be quoted throughout the galaxy for generations to come. You attacked our children and expected us to surrender. Instead, you discovered that humans will fight to the death to protect their families. We didn't fight for territory or resources. We fought for revenge, and we won't stop until every threat to humanity is eliminated. Dr. Carol Martinez led teams of scientists who studied every aspect of Zephyrian civilization to understand how such an aggressive empire had been able to dominate the galaxy for so long. Her research revealed that the aliens had followed the same pattern for centuries. They would attack a species with overwhelming force and demand immediate surrender. Most civilizations chose survival over resistance and accepted alien rule rather than face total destruction. Carroll's teams also discovered something that changed humanity's understanding of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was not unique. There were other aggressive civilizations among the stars, and some of them were even more dangerous than the aliens humans had just defeated. The galaxy was not a peaceful place, and humanity would need to remain strong if they wanted to survive. Commander Jack Stone commanded the first human diplomatic mission to contact other alien species and inform them of the new galactic situation. His ship, the UES Diplomacy, was a heavily armed vessel that carried both diplomats and Marines. The message humanity wanted to send was clear. They preferred peaceful relations, but they were prepared for war if necessary. Stone's first contact was with the Centauri Federation, a peaceful alliance of several species that had been tributary states of the Zephyrian Empire. The aliens were amazed that humans had defeated their former masters so completely, and they eagerly agreed to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. They also provided valuable intelligence about other hostile species in the galaxy. Tao. Human military had grown from a small defensive force into the most powerful armed force in the galaxy. General Frank Walsh commanded over 10,000 warships and millions of soldiers scattered across dozens of star systems. The military that had been created to defend human colonies was now responsible for maintaining peace throughout former Zephyrian territory. Frank established military academies on several worlds to train the next generation of human officers. The curriculum included not just military tactics and strategy, but also courses on alien psychology and galactic politics. The officers who graduated from these academies would be responsible for defending human interests in a galaxy that was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Dr. Nicole Adams continued her research into alien biology and developed new medical treatments that could help human soldiers survive in different environments. Her work also included developing defenses against biological weapons that other hostile species might use against humanity. The war with the Zephyrians had taught humans that they needed to be prepared for any type of attack. Major Casey Williams was promoted to general and given command of the human marine forces that would garrison former alien worlds. Her troops were the best trained and most experienced soldiers in human history, and they would be needed to maintain order in territory that included dozens of different alien species with their own cultures and conflicts. Casey's Marines had fought on alien worlds for 2 years, and they understood better than anyone how dangerous the galaxy could be. They were not just soldiers, but also teachers who would train local defense forces and ambassadors who would represent human values to alien populations. The job required skills that no human military force had ever needed before. Admiral Carter addressed the combined human fleet in a ceremony that was broadcast throughout the galaxy. Her words summarized what humanity had learned during the war and what they intended to do with their new position as the dominant military power among the stars. We came to space as explorers, seeking knowledge and friendship. We were forced to become warriors when aliens threatened our families. Now we are guardians responsible for protecting not just humanity, but all peaceful species from those who would destroy them. We did not choose this role, but we will fulfill it with honor. The galaxy had learned that humanity could be the best ally or the worst enemy any species could have. The choice belonged to those who encountered human ships among the stars. Those who came in peace would find humans generous and helpful. Those who came with weapons would discover why the mighty Zephyrian Empire was now just a memory. 5 years after the first alien attack, Captain Jake Morrison commanded the exploration vessel UES Discovery on humanity's first peaceful contact mission since the war ended. His ship was no longer a lightly armed exploration vessel, but a powerful battleship equipped with the best technology humanity could build. The message was clear. Humans still came in peace, but they were ready for war. The species that had started the war by demanding human surrender had awakened something in humanity that would reshape the galaxy for generations to come. Humanity's first response to alien aggression had indeed been pure fury, and that fury had burned away an empire that had seemed eternal.